Hey everyone, Chen here bringing you guys another video. Today we got the brand new PBE changes for AKSHAN. This is going to be a whole plethora of videos that I will be doing. I'm going to try to daily upload, but there's no promises. There's just a lot of content, new content that I want to showcase to you guys, and hopefully you guys enjoy and learn stuff like that. So obviously, with the new PBE changes coming and the new Season 14 changes coming, there are a lot of goodies for AKSHAN, right? I think this is one of the main reasons why they actually nerfed AKSHAN that hard in that one snowball patch where he basically got quadruple nerfed is because they planned Season 14 for AKSHAN. Because I genuinely think Season 14 might make AKSHAN past his needle line and just absolutely bonkers. So without further ado, in this video, I'm going to showcase one of the biggest aspects of Season 14, which is the map changes. So I'm going to be talking about all the map changes this video and explain if it's a buff or a nerf. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to smash that button and let's get right into it. So starting off with the mid lane, as you can see, it is significantly wider, right? I don't know if it's whether or not the map is like that or actually, you know, the towers have been pushed back. I believe the towers have actually been pushed back. But obviously, I don't have like a direct way of comparing it. But with the towers being pushed up, is this a nerf or a buff? Well, generally speaking, this is a giga buff for AKSHAN for the majority of matchups, right? Yes, there are instances, like for example, hard matchups, where you can see yourself in a deficit, but the amount of E angles that you have, this whole video is basically all around his E, doesn't really matter anywhere else. That's his bread and butter for his kit. The E angles for his E, you know, it still stays the same with, you know, how you can latch onto them both if you're standing in the middle. But the one area where it can potentially get nerfed is if you're standing like right here and you want to go in, right? Obviously, the current mid lane, I do have Rift Kit here. The current mid lane, you can literally stand anywhere in this area and you'll be able to swing no matter what. But with the new map, you do have to be cognizant that you do have to, like, you basically can't stand in this area, right? This one area, because you will not be able to swing at all. And another thing to notice is you can't even swing at both sides, right? So for example, there are instances in the old map where you do want to swing to this latch, you know, to get a really good curvature, whereas now you can only do this. Cool. Is that a nerf or a buff? Technically a nerf in certain situations. You're going to see a theme throughout this whole entire video. A lot of it's going to be situational because that's the thing with AKSHAN, really. Literally swinging here versus swinging here, right? A completely different result. Everything is situational. There's so many different combinations, different, you know, hook angles, stuff like that. So I can see that being a, you know, potential nerf if you do want to go in and, for example, if you're hugging this side, right? Let's say you're running and you need something to hook to kill someone. You can't do that anymore, right? You need to actually hug closer to this side to actually get this angle, which could be bad. Whereas the old map, you could just hug here and just hug here and, you know, follow up, stuff like that. So, you know, there are niche instances like that. But generally speaking, I do think this is a buff. More or less, you do want to hug topside. That is going to be the biggest thing. Because the map is asymmetrical, for the most part, you want to hug topside because, as you can see, hugging topside, you have 3 angles. Whereas hugging bot side, you only have 2, right? You would have to hug basically here, and these are all extremely far-stretched hook angles, right? So, more or less, you want to hug topside as much as you can, so definitely look to control this vision. That is a very interesting thing for AKSHAN, because generally speaking, he does always want to hug bot side and play for bot roams ASAP, but if you want like the safest position, hugging topside is like basically around here is where you want to hug for your maximum E opportunities, right? Now, a very interesting aspect that is 100% a buff is actually within the towers. As you can see, the tower is completely wide open, and that leads you to be able to do a bunch of tower dives. Tower diving will be significantly easier. Obviously, if you remember, the tower had this here, in which a lot of enemies would actually hide here. What you could do is just do this, right, and shoot them down, stuff like that. Now, that's technically more suboptimal because if you do end up doing that, they will just walk around here. So that is a nerf in that tower dive aspect. But in what aspect is it easier? Well, when you have the enemy here, you can now go for a full swing, right? So For example, if the enemy's 1 HP, you have full terrain to handle them. You have full terrain to decide what is the best E angle and how you want to tower dive. For example, this right here, no spoilers, but in upcoming PBE videos, I have done this tower dive so many times. It is absolutely bonkers, where the enemy is going to be somewhere, right next to the tower. They don't expect to die, but you can easily just go for infinite swing. You can make it wider as well. You can make it fairly wide. Let's see exactly how wide you can. This probably won't work. Oh, it does work. So you can see it is a very wide angle, so it doesn't matter where they stand. You will be able to tower dive them and do a full swing. Now keep in mind, you are going to take a lot of tower damage, so you only really want to do this when they're low HP. But there's also a bunch of other tower dive angles. For example, if they're still here, you can do this, and you can just fully walk out. Which obviously in the current map, you can't really do that. If you did it like this, you could potentially crash depending on how wide it is. But now you're guaranteed to basically, tread all the way through the tower and basically be safe, right? Because this wall has changed. Cool. So that is basically all there is for mid lane. Once again, to recap, the E angles, at least for the walls, are probably a net nerf, to be honest. The E angles for the walls are a net nerf, but the lane being wider is a net buff. Why? Because you have so much space. You have so much space to literally harass and be outside of tower range, right? Normally in this meta, you E here, you literally cannot even go past this line. This line right here, you cannot go past. Because once you go past, I don't know how to draw on this tool, to be honest. But you can see my cursor. Once you go past here, you're taking tower aggro, right? And this is the ledge that you're using. This is the same ledge, right? So let's say an enemy's here. This is the same ledge, but you have so much space to play off of. And so much more space to do damage. So overall, the lane setup is a buff in terms of just it being wider, but I do believe, especially this wall here, it just kind of fucks you up with the symmetrical aspect of you being able to stand in the middle and having all 4 shots. So that is a nerf. Tower diving, basically a buff, cool. Now I want to talk about jungle changes and, maneuvering around in the jungle. So obviously this ledge, it looked something like this. Now it looks something like this. This does leave some interesting options. For example, to maneuver in fast niche instances, you can do, a full wraparound into your tower. Let's say you're getting chased, stuff like that. You can do something like that, which obviously you couldn't do before. Now, this being wider in general is a buff for AKSHAN, right? You have so many more E opportunities to cover more distance, stuff like that. You can do a lot of different things. This right here, right, is also a buff for AKSHAN. He never really had any good E angles throughout this blue ledge, but now he has a bunch, right? You could do a very far extended here, or no, you could do something like that, right? You have a lot of windows. Now this small area, you probably aren't going to find any good angles, but you could go around here. You just have a lot of different angles that you will have to play around with. And more importantly, the biggest one actually, because obviously this was blocked, but now you can just maneuver completely around blue buff, right? Which is very good. It gives you a lot of open maneuver ability inside of blue buff fights, which is really good. You can technically make it extremely large, and I believe you still tread throughout the whole. Yep, you can make it extremely large and cover a huge amount of distance, and I believe it's symmetrical this side as well. Yep, it is. So that is actually definitely a buff as well. Let me look at other map changes. So obviously here, this is also a buff for the most part, because right now, you can go for this hook right here and swing all the way, but it's very one-dimensional. Whereas now you have so many avenues, right? You could do this. You could wait until, you're in this bush to do something like, to do something like this, right? So much maneuverability. It's actually insane. And then you could do something like, I don't know, you could do something like this. A very wide swing straight into bot lane. So let's say hypothetically you're roaming from mid to bot. You could do something like this. Let's say the enemy's here and you're just already there, right? Just absolutely insane. Obviously you can't do that in this map because of this wall here. Absolutely bonkers. The amount of avenues and different aspects of the new map that you can utilize is insane, guys. And I think same applies for top lane. You could probably do, actually top lane's probably harder to gank with these changes, just because it's so wide. You're not really favored at this. You can do something like this and you'd have to walk all the way here if you just want to tower dive, but you can't have a direct access. So in terms of top lane, I think it's nerfed. In terms of roaming for bot lane, I think it's giga buffed, right? And that is basically, they didn't change really anything about red buff, it looks like. Yeah, red looks like the same, so it's mainly just blue side, blue buff that is buffed, which is really, really good. A lot of maneuverability, and then obviously mid lane is changed as well. That is basically the video though. Hope you guys enjoyed. Hopefully I helped you guys showcase, the new changes. Overall, I do think AKSHAN is buffed with the map changes just because of how wide mid lane is. Once again, I'm going to keep saying it. A widened mid lane, once again, I mentioned it as I said it earlier, it can be a buff and it can be a nerf. I see it being more of a buff than a nerf, if that makes sense. It's going to be like a 90-10% split. 90% of the time, it's a buff. Longer lane. 10% of the time, let's say, for example, Irelia, Yasuo, having a freeze, it's a nerf. But into a lot of control mages, which is currently the meta anyways, and mages are getting buffed, so into a lot of mages, this is a buff. You have so much more capabilities about playing them, so much more space to move, and so much more angles to play them. So that is the video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, make sure to smash the like button. Remember, more PBE contents are going to be coming out, so help me out with the algorithm. Leave a like, leave a comment. Thank you all so much for watching. Hope you all have a great rest of your day. Chen out.